Alright guys, before we get into the podcast, let's get through the rigmarole first. Remember guys, this podcast posts each and every single Sunday. We run you through all of the Dolphins news you need to know about. Obviously this first news story is very, very hard to swallow as a Dolphins fan. One of the best players we've drafted in the last decade, and that is wide receiver Jarvis Landry. Dolphins trade wide receiver Jarvis Landry to the Cleveland Browns. This comes from Pro Football rumors. The Browns have acquired wide receiver Jarvis Landry from the Dolphins, according to ESPN.com's Adam Schefter. Miami will receive a 4th-round pick in 2018 and a 7th-round pick in 2019. That 4th round is the 123rd pick in the 4th round. The Dolphins used the franchise tag on Landry in February with the sole intent of trading him instead of losing him for nothing. The Dolphins did not want to give Landry a contract that would put him near the top of the wide receiver market, but the Browns apparently do not have any reservations about giving him a monster deal. For the time being, the Browns will assume Landry at the cost of the one-year placeholder worth nearly $16 million. Presumably, terms of long-term pact have already been hammered out between the two sides, and the deal should come with an average annual value of no less than $13 million per season. Landry, 25, is rumored to be seeking a $14 million annual salary and $30 million in guarantees during his talks with the Fins. The Bears and Ravens were also linked to Landry, but the Browns, who count wide receiver amongst their many potential needs this offseason, have stepped up to acquire the dangerous slot target. As of this writing, Landry is the highest paid player on the roster for 2018. Over the last 4 years, Landry has hauled in 400 passes for over 4,000 yards and 22 touchdowns for Miami. Landry finished the 2017 season with 987 receiving yards, though his yard per catch average dipped to a career low 8.8 yards per catch. The Browns will still have to figure out their quarterback situation. Obviously, they did with Tyrod Taylor leaving the division. Jarvis Landry and Josh Gordon, former first-round pick Corey Coleman, is also in the mix, and Browns are hoping that he can take a step forward with a more talented quarterback throwing to him. So it's very tough. Obviously, I knew this was going to happen. We all knew this was going to happen. It was pretty obvious. If you didn't think it was going to happen, you just didn't follow the news closely enough. Obviously, the Dolphins were not willing to pay him top wide receiver money. I told you guys in the podcast there was no way on God's green earth that they were going to let him play under that $16 million franchise tag. There's just no way. Even though that Adam Gase said it, even though that Mike Tannenbaum said it, even though that Chris Greer said it, they were lying. There was no way that they were going to let him play under that, or they would have given him that long-term deal that he wanted. Obviously, the $13 million in guarantees, I don't even know why that was such a big deal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Obviously, it would have limited our ability to improve the roster through free agency, but obviously the draft would have still came around, and we could have done some other things that we're actually looking into right now. Obviously, the Dolphins, we're going to get into it later, are strongly considering letting go Ndamukong Suh and strongly considering trading. They're actually actively shopping Juwan James right now. As of this morning, a report coming from the Sun Sentinel. So they were gonna let some of these guys go, and it looks like a total rebuild from obviously our. I mean, I don't know what else you would call it. So they were gonna relieve cap space in other ways anyway. So I don't know. This wasn't about relieving. I really don't understand it. I guess the Dolphins are in total rebuild mode. The compensation that they got for one of the best players in the NFL, a 3-time Pro Bowler in his first 4 years, to only get a 3rd-round pick for him, I think is a little ridiculous. It's not just a little ridiculous. It's just insane. I don't know how the trade talks went. Obviously, there were reports from many different outlets that it was very difficult for the Dolphins to find a trade partner with the right compensation. So I don't know if that's true or not, because I can't believe that they couldn't negotiate something better than what they got for him. There's no way I just don't believe it. It's really hard to believe that he's gone, but and it's not even, like I said, it's not even the fact that he's gone. It's just the compensation that we got from him. I think is just totally disgusting. When I heard the news, I was like, "There's no way we don't at least get a 2nd-round pick," especially to a Browns team that has so many picks in the first few rounds that they've stockpiled up over the years. And you're telling me we couldn't get one of those picks in the higher rounds, not even a 3rd-round pick. I just find it completely ridiculous. And I hope that I don't even hope, like, I just really hope that was literally the only thing that we could get for him, because it's just ridiculous to me that we only got a fourth round pick, and then a dang seventh round pick in 2019. Good luck getting any. I mean, that, and the returns for that is just, we got totally burned in this trade. I just cannot believe that. I still can't believe it. But yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow. So there are a couple players that I have come up with to obviously not replace Jarvis Landry, because good luck finding a better slot receiver over the next 5 to 6 years that's going to be better than him, because you're just not going to be able to do it. But players that can replace his production, or not replace his production, but be adequate playmakers on this offense. So here's a couple players that I think the Dolphins should at least look into. One of them is Paul Richardson, obviously coming from that heavily stacked 2014 draft. He's 25 years old. He's coming off his best season. He had 44 catches, 703 yards. He averaged 16 yards a catch, which is a very high number, and he obviously caught 6 touchdowns. The one thing I like about Paul is he's just a great downfield threat. He's a good route runner. He's got great hands. He's a big time playmaker. The one thing that he has struggled with in his career, just in general, is injuries. That's something that he's not. Just to give you guys some of the stats here. In 2015, he only played 1 game. In 2014, he played 15 games. So he's dealt with injuries in the past. So we could be taking a flyer out on that, but Paul Richardson is definitely a playmaker. He's very much capable of playing in the slot, and I think he could be something that very cheap. Obviously, could be a cheap addition to the roster, but he's somebody to keep in mind. As for other free agents, John Brown, I think, would be an interesting prospect. He obviously deals with the same issues that Paul Richardson does. It's just injuries have completely derailed his career. When you look at what he did in 2015, which was one of the best, his best season. He had just over 1,000 yards. He had 7 touchdowns. He averaged, he averaged 15 yards a catch. That was his best season. And since then, his production dipped pretty bad. He had 517 yards in 2016, an average of 13 yards a catch. And in 2017, he averaged 14 yards a catch with only 299 receiving yards. So again, a player that can play in the slot, obviously big-time playmaking ability in his past, but obviously most recently not very high production. But another player that the Dolphins could get on a cheap deal that could produce for them this upcoming season. People compared him to Marvin Harrison, which I think is just ridiculous. I mean, you never want to compare a young player to a Hall of Famer, because obviously expectations get really high, but he's definitely somebody that the Dolphins could look into. As for somebody in the draft that the Dolphins could take a flyer on, maybe in the early or the second round, or they could trade back up into the late first round to get this player, Christian Kirk. He's one of my personal favorite wide receivers coming out of Texas A&M. I was definitely intrigued to see what he would run at the combine. He ran a very fast 40 time for, I think, what expectations were. He ran a 4.47. Obviously, that's later in the 4.4, but he still ran a 4.4 40-yard dash. He played in the SEC, very similar to Juice coming out of the SEC in LSU. He's got strong hands. He's a great route runner. He's just a playmaker in the slot, and I think he would fit that void to a T. He's not the run-after-the-catch receiver that Jarvis was. He's not somebody that we're going to throw the ball to on the bubble, on these bubble screens, run-after-the-catch situations. We're not going to do that with Christian Kirk, but I think he's a perfect slot receiver for this offense. I think he fits what Adam Gase likes to do on offense to a T. He's a playmaker. He's a lot faster than a lot of people thought he would run. He gets separation. He's a tough guy to bring down in the open field. He's not, like I said, he's not Jarvis Landry, but he's your prototypical slot receiver. He's like Sterling Shepard, but a lot more athletic than Sterling Shepard was coming out of Oklahoma. I think Christian Kirk is just a better all-around athlete, and I think he's still a refined slot receiver. He is not just, he knows how to run routes. He's a polished guy who's a really, really good athlete. So I think he's a really good prospect for the Dolphins to consider in that second round. I think he would be one of the better second-round picks that we've selected in terms of a prospect and his ceiling in the last few years. He's not obviously I think he would bring consistency to this passing game, and I think he could be a good player for a long time in Miami if the Dolphins, took the chance on him. As for some other high-end guys that are going to eat up a ton of cap space, Allen Robinson is obviously the big fish on the market right now. I love him to death. I think he's like if Devontae Parker could ever reach his potential, except Devontae Parker is actually he's a way more gifted athlete than Allen Robinson, believe it or not. People forget Devontae ran a 4.3 40, which is crazy. But at his size, that's just absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah, he reminds me a lot of Devontae, what Devontae could be, obviously catching 14 touchdowns. I don't know, he had 20-some-odd touchdowns over the last 2 years that he's played, which is a very good number. I think he's going to be playing with a better quarterback if he came to Miami and Tannehill. And it would give Tannehill a number one wide receiver that could consistently take over a game. Like, he is that guy who can get you 100 yards, 125 yards, 150 yards in a game. It just utterly dominated. He has that potential. Obviously, coming off the ACL injury, there's some question marks there. But I do love Allen Robinson. I do think he can bounce back. The other big fish on the market is Sammy Watkins. I love Sammy. Obviously, he's burned us Dolphins fans for a while, but he also has dealt with a lot of injuries over his career, really has struggled to stay healthy. So you're definitely, I think people will talk about, oh, Sammy Watkins is the better receiver because you're taking less of a risk. I don't necessarily think that. I mean, Allen Robinson he's dealt with a very severe injury, obviously, and he's coming off of it. But Sammy Watkins has dealt with those same injuries in the past and has missed a ton of games over his career. I think Allen Robinson's actually the safer bet there than Sammy Watkins. So I think the Dolphins, out of the two big fishes on the market, when you talk about Sammy and Allen, who would they most likely be able to get? I would say probably Allen Robinson. Sammy Watkins is projected to command a ton of money in free agency, but the 49ers are strongly connected to Allen Robinson as a potential suitor. So if the 49ers, see, here's the deal. There's a lot of reports that say that the Dolphins are going to make a run at Allen Robinson, which I love. I think that's a good idea, but hopefully they have a plan B, because all the 49ers would have to do is say win, and then he would be a 49er like that. They have a ton of cap space. They're a very attractive team. There's a lot of buzz around that team right now. Allen Robinson would, in a heartbeat, pick them over us in 2 seconds. So hopefully the Dolphins aren't counting on that. But again, as just a quick recap, some of the players I think the Dolphins could consider as targets to help replace some of that production that Jarvis Landry is going to leave behind: Paul Richardson, John Brown, Christian Kirk in the draft, Allen Robinson, and Sammy Watkins are, I think, some of the players that the Dolphins could potentially target. And they're obviously going to clear more cap space. Juwan James is expected to be traded, and we're going to get into that later. And obviously, Ndamukong Suh is rumored to be either traded or cut pretty soon, which I don't think is a great idea. And we're going to get into that right now. Dolphins, this next news story, Dolphins still, quote, strongly considering moving on from Ndamukong Suh. Ndamukong Suh's future in Miami is still up in the air. CBS Sports, Jason tweets that the Dolphins, quote, continue to strongly consider moving on from the defensive tackle. That the Dolphins would presumably either keep or trade Suh, as there is little incentive on cutting him. So the Dolphins are, it's a very misleading headline, but the Dolphins are strongly considering trading him, not cutting him. With Suh set to count towards $26.1 million of the Dolphins' cap in 2018, which is just insane. There were already reports that the organization could cut the defensive lineman. Releasing the former second overall pick as a post-June 1st cut could save the team $17 million, but our own Stan Robinson noted that the organization would be unable to use this money until that date, which would just be meaningless at that point if they did that. It's just insane. I don't think the Dolphins should just let him go, especially if we can't use the money until June 1st. Cutting Suh would also leave Miami with $13 million worth of dead cap. So yeah, I don't think the Dolphins should go down that road. There's just it's kind of a lose-lose situation. All the big name free agents would be gone at that point, and if the Dolphins are, as Armando Salguero tweeted, going to be aggressive and going after some of these free agents, then they're all going to be gone by then. Any kind of player that could help this franchise consistently win games would be gone at that point. You're talking about low tier role players as of June 1st. So I don't think it's worth getting rid of an all-pro defensive tackle to do nothing with the free cap space. I think you're freeing enough cap space by letting Jarvis Landry, or essentially letting him walk to Cleveland, and obviously, I guess, trading Juwan James. It's looking more and more, the Dolphins could lie to us all they want, but it's looking more and more like a rebuild situation, to me at least. If the Dolphins do get rid of Sue this year, and get rid of Juwan James, then we have effectively gotten rid of the best players on our offense, and obviously one of the, if not the best player on our defense. And you can't just do that and expect, oh, we're going to compete. No, man, there's too many holes to fill, way too many holes to fill. So I think the Dolphins would be effectively in rebuild mode if all of that stuff happened, if they're not already in rebuild mode, to be honest with you. So it's just crazy. It's crazy how 2 seasons can change things, and the outlook on this franchise was totally different in 2016, especially for me. I thought we had one of the brighter futures in the league. I think a lot of people thought that around the league. When you talk about, we had Tannehill, we had Jay, we had Jarvis, we had DP, who I still, hopefully, we're and praying can become something. Kenny Stills was on the roster, who was a very adequate, above-average role player at the time. And our offensive line, the Unicorns at the time, were dominating the league. We still had a very strong offensive line. All we had to do was fix the guard positions. The outlook on the there was very little. I mean, the defense had some holes, obviously, but the 2017 draft, I think, fixed a lot of those, and I think have limited them. And then injuries, obviously, in the secondary hurt us. But enough of me rambling. I just thought we had a very bright future in Miami. And now it's all getting, torn apart. But this next news story, Juwan James is being shopped around to the league. Report as a potential suitor for Juwan James. Broncos, quote, prefer to acquire Dolphins offensive tackle Juwan James. So this could happen. There's not a lot to, this is mainly from the Broncos' perspective and what they would be getting. And we already know who Juwan James is, so I'm not going to read this. You guys already know the spiel. But in this report, it does highlight some of the players that the Dolphins could acquire from the Broncos that the Broncos are willing to give up. One of them is Emmanuel Sanders, which I think is a very interesting player-to-player trade. Another is another swap for C.J. Anderson and a third-round pick. I think that would be a very interesting trade as well. That's pretty good compensation for Juwan James, especially considering some of the compensation that we've gotten for some of our Pro Bowl players in the past. And I'm going to say that again, Pro Bowl players. When you think about Jarvis and Jay and what we got for both of those players, is literally nothing. So getting Emmanuel Sanders, who's a Pro Bowler, or C.J. Anderson in a third-round pick would be some of the best compensation that we've gotten for a player in Juwan James who hasn't even gotten to a Pro Bowl. So interesting stuff there, but obviously I think Juwan James is a future Pro Bowler in this league, and I think we would be giving up another pretty stellar talent there. So yeah. These next things that we're gonna be going through, mainly just articles, not really news. A lot of it's speculation, but I think it's very interesting stuff to be brought up. This next, news story comes from the Palm Beach Post. NFL Draft 2018, 5 reasons why Baker Mayfield fits with the Miami Dolphins. Number 1, confidence, assertiveness, and swagger. Both of these men possess it, and although Tannehill's calm and poised demeanor has its attributes, the Dolphins, especially if they lose Jarvis Landry and or Damian Williams, which we don't know about Dame, but juice is gone, could really use a bold, fiery, confident leader at the quarterback position, if not to start this year, then perhaps in 2019 or 2020. Mayfield says publicly that if anyone is going to turn around the Cleveland Browns, it's going to be him. Knowing Gase, he must grin from ear to ear when he hears stuff like that. So my opinion on that, I think, is absolutely. The Dolphins have lost their leader, especially on the offensive side of the football. They lost their tone setter. They lost all of that in Jarvis Landry. So we definitely need to replace that in some way. Somebody's got to step up as a leader. Maybe it is Tannehill. But Tannehill's not an emotional leader like a Jarvis Landry is. He doesn't get the team juiced up like Juice does. Tannehill is not that rah-rah guy. Jarvis is. And obviously when Jarvis lays somebody out, trucks somebody, or runs somebody over, hurdles somebody, or spins around somebody, or jukes somebody, it gets the team going. So we really don't have that tone setter or that emotional leader on the offense. And it would be nice, I I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield fan, but if that is the road the Dolphins go down, he definitely would fit that role as the emotional leader of the team. Number 2 is accuracy. Mayfield completed more than 70% of his passes as a junior and senior at Oklahoma. Despite a size that reminds one of Russell Wilson, Mayfield finds a way to give his playmakers a high percentage chance at making a play, and Mayfield is accurate on short, medium, and deep passes. That's something that can't be taught. Like many things, it's comes naturally to Mayfield. That's nothing that, that's not something that can be taught. Oh, excuse me, I've lost my place. It comes naturally to Baker Mayfield. So accuracy is what he's saying, that comes naturally to Baker Mayfield, and that's one of the reasons the Dolphins should draft him. I want to say something about this. I think it is super overblown that whenever he talks about Baker Mayfield, he's super accurate. If you watch his tape, and I'm not even joking around, I've watched every single one of his games, especially now that the rumors are ramping higher and higher that the Dolphins want Baker Mayfield. A lot of those throws were wide open. Wide open. He played with Mark Andrews. He played with Hollywood Brown, who's one of the best receivers in his conference, if not in the nation. He's an explosive player. Most of those, and I'm not exaggerating, most of those throws were wide open. There was nobody around them. They run a very unique scheme down there in Oklahoma. He plays for a very smart head coach. He played with a lot of talent around him. I think that's a little bit overblown. It's not going to be the same in the NFL. You're going to be throwing in tighter windows on a consistent basis. You're not going to have Mark Andrews dominate the competition because he's more talented than everybody else. You're not going to have a Hollywood Brown that's just so much faster than everybody else. They just can't keep up with him coming in and out of his breaks. That's just not going to happen in the NFL. So I think that's a little bit overblown, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about that as a thing to be worried about. Everybody's like talking about his size and can his size translate to the NFL, and stuff of that nature. Is his character a little bit overblown? Does he have bad character? That when I hear people talk about Baker Mayfield and the negatives, that's what they talk about. Nobody is talking about the fact that this kid was throwing to a ton of talented players over his career. When you talk about D.D. Westbrook, who's an NFL starter, okay, a lot of his production comes from playing with these other NFL caliber players, and I'm not even joking or exaggerating on this. If you watch him play any of those games, he's throwing to people that are wide open. So I think that is definitely something to consider when you're drafting Baker Mayfield, as opposed to Josh Allen or Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen, who were throwing into tighter windows, especially Josh Rosen and the Sam Darnold. Josh Allen, not so much. He has his own flaws as well that are big red flags. But I think Baker Mayfield, now that I've looked through all of these quarterbacks, I think Baker definitely is my third favorite prospect out of the three. I think his biggest attributes is just his leadership and his playmaking ability on the football field. I don't think accuracy, I wouldn't put that as one of the things. I just wanted to bring that up because I don't see anybody else bringing that up. Arm strength, it's plenty good enough, and this is the third reason why the Dolphins should draft him. And don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Yes, the passing system at Oklahoma required Baker Mayfield to throw a lot of short passes, but Mayfield also led the NCAA in 2017 with 11.1 yards per attempt. Not only did Mayfield post ridiculous pass efficiency ratings of 196.4 and 198.9 in the last two seasons, but he drove the ball down the field as well. Number 4, mobility and creativity. Mayfield extends plays with his feet, which can be extremely beneficial in the NFL. He may not be the magician that Johnny Manziel was in college, but he is quick enough to make defensive coordinators think about his threat to tuck and run the football on the run. He probably even has an edge in improvisational instincts. Yeah, I would agree with that. He ran a 4.8. Josh Rosen actually almost ran a faster 40 time than him, which I think is a little ridiculous. I don't think that's concrete evidence, but Baker definitely has an innate ability to feel pressure around him. That's why he was the best quarterback in college football against the blitz, because he could avoid it and extend plays and find the holes in the blitz because of his ability to do that, and I think that is one of his bigger attributes. The number 5 reason is it's time. It's time for the Dolphins to invest in another rookie quarterback with a high ceiling. It's time for the Dolphins to do what the Patriots have done for years, despite the presence of Tom Brady, and recognize the importance of spending these draft choices on a promising passer. It's time to add a youthful challenger and an insurance policy for Tannehill. It's just time. I completely agree with that. If that is, and I'm not saying that's the road the Dolphins should go down, but if that's the road the Dolphins choose to go down, I'm 100% okay with it. I understand it. Joe Montana wasn't safe from it. Tom Brady wasn't safe from it. A lot of players throughout NFL, Brett Favre wasn't safe from it. And look at those organizations and what they have been able to do in terms of longevity in their success. Because they have their heir apparent, the success continues. And we're talking about some of the greatest players of all time when you talk about Brett Favre, Tom Brady, and Joe Montana. It's not like Tannehill isn't the answer, because he could 100% still be the answer with some of the years that are left on his cheap contract at this point, especially how the quarterback market is looking. Baker Mayfield could come in and be that guy that could be, listen, if Tannehill doesn't work out, we have Baker. If he does work out, you could get rid of your draft picks and keep him on that rookie deal until then, and then figure out what to do with him. There's a lot of different things you can do with that, but I do think the Dolphins could pull a 49ers and pull a Bill Walsh or pull a Bill Belichick and pull a Mike McCarthy and what the Green Bay Packers did and just get their guy and just, hedge your bets and really gamble. I mean, it's not a gamble at all. I think it's the smart thing to do. If the Dolphins did do that, I would not be mad at it. If they went with Roquan Smith, wouldn't be mad at it. If they went from Edmonds from Virginia, I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be mad about a lot of things if the Dolphins did that. But if they went Baker Mayfield, wouldn't be mad at it. I think he's an interesting prospect. He has all the intangibles that you want at quarterback. Troy Aikman said something that's very telling about selecting players, and especially what he said was towards quarterbacks specifically. Most of these guys are going to have what it takes in terms of physical traits to be a successful NFL quarterback. He said that about each and every single draft. He said that, which is very true. When you look at every draft that comes through, most of these guys have the physical traits to become an NFL quarterback, and a good one. But do they have the intangibles? Are they a great leader? Are they mentally strong? Are they cool under pressure in big games? Those are the things that are so hard to find in an NFL quarterback. Baker Mayfield has all of those things, and he has the physical tools to be a very good NFL quarterback. That is the reason why I love Baker Mayfield. It's because of his intangibles. And I think, just like Troy Aikman said, those are the things that you have to look for in a quarterback, and I think Baker Mayfield checks all of those boxes. And when they say he plays with swagger, they are not lying. This man, every time he throws a touchdown, whether it is against Kansas or against Alabama, he is high-stepping through the sideline. He's up 35-10. He's still scoring touchdowns and doing backflips and stuff. That's how much he loves the game of football, and that is something that I love the most about him. And I think if the Dolphins were to go down that road, I don't think anybody would be disappointed in that pick. I think I like that pick, especially if the Dolphins are in full-on rebuild mode, which it's looking more and more likely. So it's definitely something for them to consider for sure. This is the Miami Dolphins free agent roundup, just in case you guys don't know. All of the free agents that the Dolphins have: Matt Moore, Damian Williams, Anthony Fasano, Jerron Bushrod, Sam Young, William Hayes, Terrence Fede, Koa Misi, Nate Allen, Walt Aikens, Michael Thomas, Alteron Werner, Cody Parkey, and John Denny. So out of all of these guys, the Dolphins absolutely, I think, should keep. Cody Parkey for sure, Michael Thomas for sure, Walt Aikens for sure, William Hayes for sure, and that's about it. Damian Williams too, but I think the Dolphins could definitely benefit from a younger running back in the draft. Matt Moore, I don't think the Dolphins should keep. So that's just a quick rundown of some of the Dolphins free agents. Okay, so back to some of the things that, again, these aren't news stories, these are more of articles. This comes from the Finsider. Miami Dolphins could take a run at Allen Robinson now that Landry is gone. The Miami Dolphins made it official Friday afternoon by trading away their number one receiver over the past 4 years, Jarvis Landry, in a deal to the Browns that netted them 2 draft picks. Those draft picks, of course, would turn out to be a 2018 fourth-round pick, 123rd overall, and a 7th-round pick in 2019. Nowhere near the level of compensation that I believed netted a valuable return for Landry. But the damage is done, and it's time to move on. He's absolutely right. I think that's the thing that takes everybody off, is just, how are you going to get a 3-time Pro Bowler? You remember when we traded for Brandon Marshall to the Bears, and I think we got a 2 third-round picks for him that we ended up turning into nothing. But that's for Brandon Marshall, who played one season with us. And, you know, Jarvis is 24 years old and a 3-time Pro Bowler, shattered the receptions record, and you're telling me you could only get a 3rd and 7th round pick for him, even though that the reports are that the Dolphins tried many different times to get rid of it. I don't care. You should have negotiated, even if it was in the draft. You know what? I hope, I'm getting on a rant here, but I hope to God the Dolphins, you're telling me that you couldn't package Jarvis Landry, the 11th overall pick, to move up to the number 4 spot for that? You're telling me you couldn't at least get that for him? I don't believe that. Like, I don't believe that you couldn't have swung a deal like that with any of those guys, especially reportedly that we read on the last podcast. The Indianapolis Colts want to move down. The Cleveland Browns from 4 are reportedly want to move down. The New York Giants want to move down. Not saying that the Giants want Juice Landry, but I guarantee you if we called the Giants, that could be, especially reuniting with Odell, that could have been something that could have happened. But definitely the Colts and Browns, for sure. I just don't... In packaging the 11th overall pick with Juice Landry, they already want to move down anyway. The Browns already have the 1st overall pick. It's very hard for me to believe that wasn't... hopefully that was at least discussed. Because what we got for Juice Landry was absolutely ridiculous. I know I'm going off on a tangent here. Let's get back to the story about the Dolphins going after Allen Robinson. Landry was Miami's heart and inspiration, and losing him is a crushing blow. The good news that comes out of this is now they can use the $16 million he was owed in 2018 to apply to other pending free agents. The Dolphins have a lot of holes across the board that they can fill up. Unfortunately, with the Landry deal, wide receivers may be another hole that opened up for them. Playing out of the slot, it could be argued Landry was never a true number 1 receiver, but it doesn't discredit the fact that he wasn't Miami's number 1 option. With him gone, the Dolphins definitely lack a true number 1. Now Devontae Parker has not been the guy, even though Miami drafted him and with their 1st overall selection in 2015. Parker has played well in spurts, but he's never exceeded 744 yards in any season, and has constantly battled injuries since he entered the league. To make up for the loss, the Dolphins are likely to use Jakeem Grant more in the slot and could give Kenny Stills more time in that role. Stills spent a significant amount of time in the slot position during his time in New Orleans. Isaiah Ford is also expected to see an expanded role after spending his rookie season on injured reserve. Miami making up for Landry's passion may be difficult, but the truth is finding a replacement in the slot should not be. Any one of the guys mentioned could fill in admirably on Miami, or Miami could find a suitable replacement late in the draft. They could even look in their own backyard at a guy like Braxton Berrios from the University of Miami. Regardless of how Miami addresses the slot position, they would still remain without a true number 1 receiver. With extra money they are saving, they could look to find one quickly through free agency. One of the available free agents, Allen Robinson, would be the most intriguing to see in a Dolphins uniform. The Jaguars surprised many by electing not to tag Robinson, possibly resulting in him becoming a free agent by Thursday. Jacksonville could still ink Robinson to a deal by March 14th, but if they don't, he would become the most coveted wide receiver free agent of this offseason. As of now, Miami is still one of Robinson's top landing spots, but that doesn't mean that can't be changed by Thursday. Miami isn't one of Robinson's top landing spots. Should Miami have interest in Robinson, it would be more than a viable replacement for Landry. Robinson had a remarkable season in 2015. He caught 80 balls for 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns. He trended down the following year in 2016 and played in a less than a quarter last year after tearing his ACL in the Jacksonville opener. That could be a reason the Jaguars were so hesitant on tagging Robinson, but signs point to him having a full recovery in time for training camp. Very interesting stuff. I think the Dolphins, if that is true, that is speculation, but there is a report that the Dolphins, I think it was from Armando Salguero, or it was Barry Jackson, I can't remember, but the Dolphins are, if that is true, that the Dolphins are interested in Allen Robinson. I don't think that they can bank on it because there's like 10 other teams that are interested in him, and like I said, if the 49ers, they could just snap their fingers in a second, and Allen Robinson will be wearing the red and gold, so I don't know. It's very interesting stuff. I don't think the Dolphins can bank on it. He definitely would be a great addition to the team, but I don't know. I don't think it's likely, is what I'm trying to say. Free agency rumors. Dolphins showing interest in Teddy Bridgewater, Trey Burton, and among others. The rumor mill is starting to swirl for the 2018 free agency period, and so far, this comes from Finsider. And so far, multiple high-profile players are already being tied to the Miami Dolphins. According to the Star Tribune, the Dolphins have shown interest in impending Minnesota Vikings free agent quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, and Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, has reported that the Miami is also interested in free agent tight ends Trey Burton and Ed Dickson, as well as free agent tackle Chris Hubbard. The most far-fetched of these rumors is obviously Teddy Bridgewater, as Miami would likely only be interested in bringing in the Miami native as a backup quarterback. Most executives around the league believe that Bridgewater will get a shot as a short-term starter on a prove-it contract. Burton and Dickson, Trey Burton and Ed Dickson, are two players that make a great deal of sense for Miami's front office to pursue. The former has long been buried on Philadelphia's roster behind the two talented veterans and is ready to become a full-time starter. Burton is said to be garnering the interest of quite a few teams, given his massive potential, and could cost a pretty penny, meaning the Dolphins could be easily outbid for his services given the team's salary cap situation. This was before we got rid of Jarvis, so obviously that wouldn't be an issue now. Ed Dickson, a 30-year-old vet. Okay, I'm going to stop everybody right here. We're skipping over Ed Dickson because he's hot trash. I watch every Panthers game every season. Ed Dickson is not good. Okay, they bring up his 400. I think what he had. Hang on a second. He had 400 yards receiving. He got almost all of that in one game against the Detroit Lions. I think he had like 100 and he had a ton of yards receiving. And that was because the Lions defense just had a very bad day and a lot of busted coverages. It wasn't because Ed Dickson is some freak athlete. So if the Dolphins went down that road, we would be stuck in another tight end situation that we want to get out of. Moving on to Chris Hubbard. Miami's interest in Chris Hubbard is the most intriguing of the four because it remains to be seen whether the team will need a starting right tackle. Juwan James is still under contract under the 5th-year option, and the Dolphins have yet to rescind the option, meaning that the team could still choose to retain the budding young starter. James has been solid in just about every sense of the word and has improved each of his 4 seasons in the league. So his roughly $9.3 million salary cap, 10th in the league at the tackle position, could be worth the cap hit for the team. Miami could also look to extend James and lower his cap for this year before free agency begins. So Ed Dickson out of the road. Chris Hubbard I really like. He can play guard and tackle. So if the Dolphins want to get Chris Hubbard at guard, I think he's a very capable guard. I love him at tackle too. He did a tremendous job filling in for Marcus Gilbert for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love him to death. Do not think he's better than Juwan James. He's definitely more durable than Juwan James is. The Dolphins have to be very careful because if they do get rid of Juwan James, and if that is the rumor, and the rumor is they Adam Gase liked how Sam Young and Jesse Davis played alongside one another, I think it was just a completely stupid idea because I don't think Sam Young is an adequate NFL starter. I do not think Jesse James is the best guard. I think he fits more at tackle. So if the Dolphins want to move Jesse Davis to right tackle, I'm completely okay with that. If the Dolphins want to get Chris Hubbard and plug him in at guard, cool. I'm really cool with that. I like that idea. And go out in the draft and get another guard, completely okay with that. I think that offensive line looks really good with Jesse Davis, Laramie Tunsil, Chris Hubbard at guard, Mike Pouncey at center, and whoever the heck else we get at guard in the draft. I think that looks a lot better than getting Sam Young and Jesse Davis at guard. Jesse Davis, to me, is a really, really good pass blocker. He's not so much a great run blocker. That's why he fits at right tackle. And when we put him over there at tackle, he looked very natural at it, and I think he did a tremendous job. So I love Jesse Davis there. Not so much a guard. I just don't think he's physical enough to be a guard. And he got beat way too many times during the season, and it caused us to lose a lot of yards and a lot of negative yards, which was caused by Jesse Davis's lack of physicality in the running game and just wasn't the greatest run blocker in the world. So I think his talents fit him more at right tackle. Sam Young is not a good tackle. I will just watch the Rams game 2 seasons ago, and he did okay, but he's not a starter in the NFL. So I think that would be foolish for the Dolphins to count on Sam Young being their tackle for the 2018 season. Next news story. This is not a news story, it's more of an article. This is by the Palm Beach Post. Jarvis Landry saga. The Miami Dolphins master the art of letting best draftees walk away. I mean, I don't even feel like reading this, to be honest with you. He brings up a lot of good points. I guess we can get into this. It's just really tough to read this. Pop quiz. Which receiver would you rather have, Mike Wallace or Jarvis Landry? I'd say you have 5 seconds to think it over. If you've been paying any attention, heck, even if you barely paid attention, you should ace that in 0.1 seconds. I can hear you saying the correct answer obviously is Landry. I can also hear you saying, why even ask such a stupid question? Because the question isn't stupid if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, if you're the Miami Dolphins. In fact, the answer isn't the same as yours, mine, just about everyone else in the football universe. The once valued Wallace more than they value Landry today. The Dolphins handed Wallace a fatter free agent contract that in today's salary cap dollars was greater than what they could have been paying Landry right now to avoid absurdly giving him away to Cleveland Browns, a deal that goes straight into the Wes Welker Hall of Fame. Landry came within an eyelash of becoming the franchise's first player with 3 consecutive 1,000-yard receiving seasons, yet he's valued less today than the day he walked out the door as a second-rounder in 2014. According to the Miami Dolphins calculator, if you do their math, just how is it a guy can enter the league as a number 2, perform like a 1, yet get traded away for nothing more than a 3. I don't understand that either. Dolphins fans can be forgiven for having a range of emotions. Angry, sure. Skeptical over where the passion and yards are going to come from. Yes and yes. But shocked, don't be naive. That's what I'm saying, man. I don't know why any Dolphins fan would be shocked. Even though the Dolphins swore all along they wanted Landry, no, they didn't. Even though Landry swore that he wanted to be here, and even though Landry never held out for even one optional practice when others would have, the way this played out couldn't have been more laughable, predictable, even if it were splashed across these billboards outside Davie. There is a franchise for which there are 2 intangible truths. 1, the draft record is poor. 2, it's the record of retaining draftees who outperform their draft position is worst. In 2012, the Dolphins hit in rounds 3, Olivier Vernon, Lamar Miller, and Rashad Matthews. Not one received the lucrative second NFL contract, the Dolphins. Neither, for that matter, did Charles Clay, a 6th-rounder in 2011. Reminder, we are talking about the Dolphins here, not the Marlins. And you wonder where the team's offensive playmakers are. Simple, everywhere else. Let's not forget the case of Vontae Davis, the first rounder in 2009, who developed into a Pro Bowler. Cornerback for Indianapolis after Joe Philbin showed him the door. Credit the Dolphins for extending Pro Bowl safety Rashad Jones, but why are such transactions the exception? Why perennially prognosticate the NFL equivalent of starting your taxes the evening of April 15th. In 2013, the Dolphins took a stab at a home run hitter by signing Wallace, but like so many flashy free agent signings, which Mike Tannenbaum adores, the love affair was fleeting. Wallace was given a 5-year contract, $12 million per year, which swallowed 9.75% of the season salary cap. If Landry could have been signed about $14 million per year, had represent a 7.86% of the next year's cap, which is obviously a big difference. So yeah, he brings up a good point. It just sucks, and you know what? I don't understand it. I don't understand what the Dolphins are trying to do, what the Dolphins' goal is. I don't know whose decision this was, ultimately. I don't know who is, like, the leader of this idea. I don't know who was in the conference call, who was in the, the war room when whoever the heck was on the phone with the Cleveland Browns and was like, yeah, they're offering a 4th and a 7th for Jarvis Landry. Is that cool with everybody? Everybody shook their heads yes. I don't know whose fault this was and whose decision this was, but it was an absolutely ridiculous decision. I don't know what the Dolphins are trying to do. I don't know if the Dolphins are trying to rebuild. I don't know if the Dolphins are trying to win. I don't know what they're trying to do. Looking back on the 2017 season, I was blinded by the fact, and, I'm guilty of it. I really thought the Dolphins should try to win. I thought they should have tried to got Jay Cutler and should try to go for it. But looking back on it, we should have just crap and tanked. There's no looking back on, obviously, nobody could have envisioned all of this happening, but knowing what we know now, getting rid of J.J., getting rid of Jarvis Landry, now that the rumors is that Ndamukong Suh is likely to be traded or cut, now that Juwan James is likely to be traded, if I knew that now, back then, I would have been like, we should just start David Fells or Matt Moore and lose as many games as we possibly can, because obviously this team, like it or not, and whatever the heck they say, this team is in a rebuilding mode. Especially if Juwan James and Ndamukong Suh are let go, there is no way you could twist that into anything else. And we're in a rebuilding situation if that does happen with the 11th overall pick, which is just not a good thing, obviously, unless we trade up. It's a ridiculous thing. The 49ers I'm jealous of. Even the Cleveland Browns at this point I'm jealous of, because I can see what path that they're trying to go down. I can see what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, and some of the moves they've made have been beautiful, and they've set their franchises up for success for many years to come. Unlike the Dolphins, who have no plan, it seems, who don't know what they're doing. I don't know what path they're trying to take. As opposed to 2016, we had Adam Gase, who was this, the most coveted head coach at the time, who was this brainiac who led the highest scoring offense in 2013 with the Denver Broncos. He put up tremendous stats with Peyton Manning, throwing for 55 touchdowns, turned Jay Cutler's career around, helped Tim Tebow reach and win a playoff game. He drafted Jay Ajayi. Jay Ajayi came onto the scene with 3 200-yard rushing games. He looked amazing. Jarvis Landry was still here. Devontae Parker, there was still some promise there, and I still think there is promise there. I'm not completely giving up. He turned Tannehill into a winning quarterback, winning 6 games in a row and an eventual AFC wildcard playoff berth. There was a lot to look forward to. There was a lot down the road that the Dolphins could achieve. We had our young nucleus on offense, and Ndamukong Suh was still the cornerstone to build around on defense. There was a lot to look forward to. There was a clear path that the Dolphins were taking, and building around Tannehill, Jarvis, and Jay Ajayi and Jarvis Landry. We had one of the better offensive lines that season. Obviously, BA was catapulted out of the team for Julius Thomas, which obviously ended up being a mistake, even though that Brandon Albert obviously ended up retiring. And he didn't want to play guard, and that was a whole different situation. I'm getting off track here, but at least there was a clear path and a clear, I don't want to say philosophy, but there was a clear culture change. There was a clear tradition that I thought the Dolphins were starting during that season, a winning tradition. I thought that's what we were striving for, and I thought that's what we achieved. And it seems like we're reverting back to our old ways, where for some reason, I don't know why, but the Dolphins decided to tear it down. I honestly don't know why. I understand that the offense wasn't what it needed to be in 2017, but I think that is to be expected when you have Jay Cutler as your starting quarterback, when you had as many injuries as we had on our roster. I don't know why the Dolphins did what they did, just letting everything, go. It's just puzzling to me. And people, you might say as an argument to that, I don't honestly really don't know what the argument is to that, but because I don't think there is any. And the reason I'm mad about it all is because I don't trust the Dolphins to fix it at all. You got rid of all of these, in my opinion, stellar players, Pro Bowlers that were under the age of 25. So what are you going to do now? And like I said, we really don't have a clear path. What the Dolphins are trying to do? Are they trying to win? Are they trying to rebuild? We don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do, and we won't know until we see all of the off-season acquisitions. And maybe it's a little premature to be judging the Dolphins on this, but their track record shows I really do not trust the Dolphins to make up for any of this. It's honestly insane to me with all the things that have happened and transpired over these last 2 seasons. I don't know. It's just absolutely baffling to me. Like I said, you think about to bring it up one more time, the stellar the playmakers that were on that offense that are no longer there since the Tannehill injury is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think you could put a gun to anybody's head and make them get rid of all of that talent for what we got in return for it. I think is absolutely ridiculous. So it's puzzling, it's depressing. I don't know what else to say to you guys other than I hope the Dolphins have a plan. And you know what? I'm holding out a little bit of hope, a little bit of glimmer of hope that they can figure this out, turn this around somehow, and adequately replace some of the talent. To give them credit, I'm going to give them credit. The 2017 draft wasn't a bad draft. They got a lot of good young talent in that. Cordrea Tankersley, who has a very bright future. Devon Gotcha, who I like a lot, I think has a very bright future. When you think about Raekwon McMillan, who I think is a very good player, and I cannot wait to see get onto the field. I think Chris Harris has potential to be a very good pass rusher in the future. So they had a good draft, especially coming off a 10-6 season, surrounding that team with a lot of very good role players and potentially Pro Bowlers when you talk about Chris Harris and maybe Raekwon McMillan down the road. So it's not impossible, but the Dolphins have created more holes to fill. It just seems more and more like a rebuilding process, and it's completely insane and crazy. I don't know what else to say to you guys. I mean, when you think about all of these moves, it really sucks that this franchise direction seems to be very muddied and murky right now, and there's not a clear direction. So we'll see in the coming days. I'm very excited to see what the Dolphins do in the coming days, with the reports of Armando Salguero saying that the Dolphins are going to be aggressive in free agency, which is very interesting. We'll see what this regime does with Adam Gase, because they can't go into this third season of the regime and be like, yep, we're rebuilding, we're starting over. After 2 seasons ago, going 10-6, getting rid of most of the players that got you there, it's absolutely ridiculous. So that's what the situation we're in right now. And all I can say right now is, I would literally ask Mike Tannenbaum why, and Chris Greer why, and Adam Gase why did you get rid of all of these players? We're about to get the answer to why they did, to see what they do with this free cap space. And we'll see. They could be this could be one of the biggest blunders in Dolphins history, if not the biggest blunder, or they could turn it around on its head and get this roster back to where it needs to be. So I am Skyx1383. It has been a very stressful week for a Dolphins fan. The last few weeks, really. And I will see. And let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. I think there's a lot of interesting things to be discussed. What direction do you think the Dolphins are going in? And I am Skyx1383, and I will see you guys in the next one.